I wanted to love it. I really wanted to love it. But Netflix did a Warner Brothers. First, I didn't love or hate Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. I felt mixed feelings after viewing the movie. Character backstories were omitted from the original release on Netflix since the streaming service chose to broadcast the 2-hour PG-13 version of the film before the longer 3-hour R-rated version. The PG-13 certification is maintained by skipping R-rated violence and occasionally awkward action cuts. My first grievance is that Rebel Moon is not a trilogy. I wouldn't say I like these two-part films. A movie needs to consist of 1 or 3 films, particularly for what is meant to be a massive space opera epic. 2 is an uncomfortable number. In part 1, too much and too little were tried and accomplished. There's a terrible tempo. Most of the time it proceeds too slowly, yet the story, especially the crucial parts like character development, is hurried and hardly touched upon. The fact that so much of the movie is so illogical is my second grievance. Yes, I can see how a vast space empire would require food to support its troops. No, I don't see how a battalion of well-armed soldiers and a large dreadnought ship can be defeated by a group of 5 or 6 warriors, even with the addition of 3 or 4 squads of rebel fighters. The movie's surprise and treachery at the end were entertaining to me, but I found the way our heroes escaped to be absurd. Who created these robots in scorpion chairs? Surely they look nice, but why would you design the paralysing tool to be identical to the key? And why would Gunnar, the farmer, know that? Here was a deeper, trickier game that Kai would have made more sense. Rebel Moon Part 1 is similar to the start of The Magnificent Seven, Seven Samurai, or well, The Three Amigos. When the strong adversary threatens a community, a squad of assuming heroes is assembled to assist the residents in defending themselves. Here, scale is the issue. It would have been okay if Snyder had created the opponent as a band of space pirates or a malevolent space motorcycle gang, even a local police officer who uses excessive force to enforce rules on our world. However, the force in question is enormous, spanning many solar systems, and it has taken control of the known space. It is prepared to unleash its full power on these peasants. It doesn't hold water with me. The heroes' real assembly moves slowly as well, taken straight out of the Harry Potter hippogriff scenes. We get massively extended scene in which Tarrant breaks and then rides a space griffin, with lots of Snyder slow-mo to slow things down even further. But after they find General Titus, a sovereignly drunken now but still ripped, is just one inspirational speech and off we go. Rebel Moon is a lot like PG-13 Star Wars, only it's never as humorous or charming. You wouldn't find that type of profanity in a galaxy far, far away or during scenes involving attempted sexual assault. While none of these characters are particularly horrible, the most endearing ones turns out to be a villain. The lack of comedic relief is a problem that filmmakers like Zack Snyder never seem to acknowledge, as it strengthens our empathy for the characters and it makes us feel more when horrible things happen to them. Tension is aided by comic relief. The gist of it is this, but I could go on and on about all the minor details in this film that didn't make sense. This has the potential to be an amazing space opera with a bit more time and a better screenplay. It was just fun instead. It wasn't quite as bad as the reviews seem to suggest, in my opinion. I find all the chatter about worst films ever to be exaggerating and superficial. Yes, Rebel Moon is derivative of Star Wars, but Star Wars was derivative also. But I have no problem with that, particularly in the sword and planet genre. John Carter predated Dune by a great deal. Frank Herbert, George Lucas, and Zack Snyder are all free to draw inspiration from Edgar Rice Burroughs, Herbert, and Akira Kurosawa respectively. I don't mind at all. Anyone creative has their derivative works. Just look at any YouTube video on any given topic, they're all the same. But it's the voice and style that makes you want to watch the same topic over and over. However, Rebel Moon's inability to sufficiently distinguish itself as something distant and well thought out is its main flaw. I wish Snyder had thought of some better hooks, some cleverer ways to make this universe unique and special instead of just hodgepodging of people's ideas, but maybe that will change when we see part 2.
Blow that building up, this wall. We're just gonna blow some stuff up and hopefully that'll look cool.
Despite the lackluster characters and weak plot, it felt mostly very capable of being a darker, edgier Star Wars. I found the action to be enjoyable and largely entertaining. If anything, it was plagued by a lot of the same pacing problems that plagued the subsequent Star Wars trilogy. As you may remember, the original Star Wars trilogy excelled at 2 things. First, it offered us likeable people, and second, it took the time to thoroughly develop a feeling of location in each of the films. Planets like Tatooine, Dagobah, Hoth, the Death Star, the Moon of Endor, Cloud City, and so on were introduced to us. The locations we see in Rebel Moon and the subsequent trilogy are completely forgettable and hardly established at all. Though we have only barely touched the surface, the characters have potential. Still, overall, I think the movie does just enough to warrant its creation. Although I enjoyed Sofia Boutelli's Cora, I wish Snyder had chosen more effective ways to shed light on her background than protracted exposition-heavy flashbacks. Though, like all the others, he gets a little lost in the rush of introducing so many people in such a short amount of time, like Charlie Huffman's Kai was a lot of fun. Anthony Hopkins' fantastic voice performance makes the robot Jimmy an instant favourite, even if his entire arc was cut from part 1. Please more Jimmy. Jarmu and Sun, General Titus, Mikhail Husman, Gunnar, and Bo Donna's sword-wielding nemesis, not to mention the surprisingly sympathetic spider monster lady she battles, didn't get nearly enough screen time. Perhaps half of these characters should have been introduced in the second movie of the Imaginary Trilogy. I wish this was. Even if Admiral Atticus Noble is just a better dressed Star Wars Imperial and walking cliche, Ed Skrein makes an excellent villain in this role. In the meantime, the photography, costumes, sound effects and special effects were excellent. The way that this movie interpreted laser blasters, which pierced people through, was excellent. Though they appeared to be lightsabers in the trailer, Nemesis swords aren't quite that. Instead, they're just regular swords that became flaming fire blades when heated. I only wish there had been a bit more breathing room for all this meticulous attention to detail, a feeling also I have for the dialogue and the characters. While I was hyped to see Rebel Moon, I had very low expectations going into the movie after the initial reactions. In the end, it felt more akin to fast food than I'd anticipated, and I was prepared for it to be awful at every stage. It's not horrible at all, but nothing very special and not the kind of burger you would buy on a date. But occasionally do enjoy fast food. It has a very powerful effect. Rebel Moon satisfied my hunger for a space opera, and it did without using the Force. While it's not Andor by any means, I thought it was better than the prequels, and it wasn't worse than the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I want to see what happens, therefore I'm going to watch part 2 for sure. When that's released, I'll even see the director's cut, though for heaven's sake, that should have been the version from the beginning. However, at this point, the Snyder Cut has become a staple of Snyder's filmography. Well, that's enough rambling for one day.